This is going to be on defending our data and our borders. My name is Rudnitskuy, and I'm a Berlin-based technology editor at Bloomberg. Joining me today are Dominique, Shelton, Leipzig, a privacy and consultant partner at Meyer & Brown, and Florian Seibel, the CEO of Quantum Systems, which is a German drone startup that has been testing its equipment in Ukraine. I realize we're the only guys between you and cocktail hour, so I'm very happy that you guys are still here and paying attention, and hopefully we'll make it worth your while. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Let's start with a poll. It's actually quite similar to the poll we had on recording artists, but this one's about defense and cybersecurity. Can we get the poll? So, will AI advances make our borders more secure and our data more secure, or easier to attack? So if yes, it means more secure. If no, it means they're more vulnerable. Now, color me a skeptic. I think with the apparent decline of the Pax Americana and regional conflicts from Ukraine to Israel increasingly defining our era, we've seen a surge of new threat players and that use and abuse technology. I'm not really so concerned about doomsday scenarios like Skynet taking over the world and enslaving humanity, but we saw deep fakes in the elections in Slovenia. And while we don't know exactly what happened in Israel, we can say that their cutting-edge technology was not enough to stop the worst terror attacks the country's ever experienced. So, Dominique, what do you think? I mean, is AI something that's going to be able to protect us more, or is it going to make us more vulnerable to attacks?
Well, Jake, this is such an important question. And essentially, companies, I have two words for the companies that are out there in the defense world and for countries: high alert. Leaders around countries, around companies, need to be aware. And let me just tell you a couple of reasons why that is so important. Just in February, unrelated to what's going on in the Middle East, but in February of this year, we had a situation where Killnet, a Russian cyber group, targeted 31 hospitals in the EU. Similarly, 6 months later, over on the US side of the world where I live, we had a situation where Reseda, another Eastern European cyber gang, targeted 17 hospital systems, causing emergency rooms to be closed and ambulances, people needing critical emergency care, to be diverted, and loss of life. So this couldn't be more important. Our critical infrastructure, Colonial Pipeline at the very beginning of the tensions in Russia, you don't even have to have a full-on war. We had Colonial Pipeline in the US that actually was the most important and disastrous critical infrastructure ransomware attack on our shores in the US. So this is really critical, and leaders need to be aware.
So, Florian, I know you recently signed a deal with the German army to develop your technology. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys are developing over at Quantum Systems and what your experiences in Ukraine have shown and how they can apply to NATO countries?
Yeah, so when we started in 2015, we were tackling the biggest market back then that was supposed to be agriculture. So the vision was that every farmer would own one of these drones to increase yield and reduce fertilizer. And nobody wanted to invest in hardware and tech, so it was all about software models. And in 2019, I had the feeling that what we are doing is wrong, right? We as a Western society. And I remembered me coming from the German army with a 15-year military background. We said, okay, let's make what we do a dual-use product. So that's what we are today. It's a company that has a product that you can either use in commercial use cases or for governmental use cases. And then Ukraine happened, and obviously now a lot of people said that Quantum had a lot of luck, and I don't like that so much because we were prepared and we have a product and there was a chance, and we used that chance. And we are deployed in Ukraine. We have delivered hundreds of units to protect their borders. And the key takeaway for me is now that this was a wake-up call for European resilience. You know, we need to start investing in hardware, in deep tech, in AI. They're first going to attack our infrastructure, the digital infrastructure, and the next thing that is getting attacked are our borders. And the only way we can do that and protect this, what we have here in Europe, is by investing in technology, by investing in automation, in robotics that can monitor our borderlines. And that's exactly what we're doing.
Well, I mean, it seems like you're in good hands. Peter Thiel, I know, is one of your major investors. Have defense startups and dual-use companies been insulated from the downturn in funding this year?
No, so we actually did quite well in the last 2 years. I mentioned we had a hard time raising money, but with some of the tailwinds that were coming from Ukraine, after Thiel invested, obviously we got a lot of interest. But we were now, and we're going to announce this actually today, at the end of this conference, we were able to close another 64 million euro investment round last week. And so that brings our capital raise to more than 100 million. And I think we're the first European startup that actually raised that much money for a dual use case. But there is way more room and way more fields that we need to tackle. And there's tons of VC money out there sitting in bank accounts, not getting invested because nobody wants to invest at the moment. So if you are in the VC game, funding game, we are good for now, but there's other companies out there. And this is really a wake-up call. If we as a society, if we do not want our kids to fight Chinese war robots, we need to start acting now.
So, Dominique, you've got your finger on the pulse of investors. Has there been a change of late in how they view investing in dual-use technology and defense technology?
Yes, we've started to see that investors are investing in the U.S. In defense technology and defense tech. And I think there's a realization that this is the future. I love the poll at the beginning where you're talking about the use of AI and whether that will protect our borders. You know, AI, and I agree with what Florian said, I think our investor community realizes that AI will be the future, but it's only going to be as good as what we put into it. So I was using this analogy earlier this morning, but if you just think of it like an ingredient in a cake. If you have, instead of water, pickle juice, and you put that in, you're going to have a very different tasting cake than you imagine. And we've got the exact same thing going on with AI. So it will be just as good as we make it and as we invest in our companies.
And Florian, I mean, I'm an old Russia watcher, and for me, the phrase dual-use technology is just associated with sanctions, because that's what the U.S. and Europe often target, is, you know, dual-use technologies and cutting off imports to Russia. But more broadly, I mean, how do you regulate dual-use technologies, and how do you think the European regulations are going to help or hinder defense startups?
I think at the moment they actually hinder us because the dual-use law that was passed by the EU in, I think it was in 1999, there's certain thresholds on like how far can a drone go or how fast can it fly. And obviously technology evolves, right? There's Chinese toy drones that you can order online that actually, if you would produce them in Germany, you would not be allowed to export them out of Germany or Europe, right? Because they're outperformed by Chinese toy drones. So, I mean, that says a lot, right? So we really have to wake up in a lot of areas, and especially Germany. We have to get rid of this German angst, doing a little bit and then seeing how everybody reacts, and then, oh, let's do it just a little bit more, but let's not wake up somebody. Maybe we want to buy gas again from the Russians sometime. Who knows what happens in 5 years? This is so stupid, you know? There's only one chance. We have to fight the Russians now. And the same in Israel. I mean, how are the German politicians? We stand by the side of Israel. Yes, okay, I'm hearing that for 2.5 weeks now, but what is happening? Yeah? But I think startups are good for this, you know, because startups they're pushing forward. We are fighting the corporate culture of doing things, and we just do things, and we break things, and we iterate fast. And a little bit startup culture in politics, I think, would do good.
Well, Dominique has written a lot about that kind of intersection between tech and regulation in the past, and she has a new book coming out, I think, in December on the subject. So what do you think governments need to focus on to ensure innovation without sacrificing safety?
Well, governments need to focus on the same thing that companies need to focus, which is the information that we've gathered from large language model experts, for example, in AI, and the guidance that they've provided in terms of how to make AI amazing, do exactly what we expect it to do. And what that involves is risk ranking, figuring out how to treat low-risk AI differently than high-risk AI, and also for high-risk AI, ensuring that there's continuous testing, monitoring, and auditing of those systems, and the tech stack itself, the tech embedded into the AI itself, will reflect the logging data and metadata necessary for scientists to go in and fix the model should it deviate from expectation. I mean, let's face it, if we have an AI-powered missile and it gets misdirected or it's attacked by cyber criminals and it goes to a target that involves civilians or others, that the kind of devastation and harm, I really don't want to think about that. And it's totally avoidable, most of it, with the proactive embracing of the draft legislation that does exist now in 37 countries and 6 continents.
So we have a question from the audience. To what extent are dual-use startups designed to circumvent LP restrictions on investing in defense tech? And I guess that one's for you, Florian.
I don't think so. Very good question. So when I talk to my investors and their LPs, so we cannot build weapons, we as Quantum, and we're not going to, because our investors are limited by their LPs to do so. So we're in dual use, we do reconnaissance, intelligence, and surveillance. But what is interesting, when I talk to every single one of the LPs I meet at these conferences, the feedback always is, oh, me personally, I don't have a problem with investing in defense. And talk to the next person, oh, I don't have a problem as well. So in the end, the whole room has no problem, but why in the hell are they not investing in defense? I mean, what do we have to change? I mean, everybody is in for it. I mean, maybe we can do another poll here. So do you think that we should invest in defense as a VC landscape? I think so, yes, because there's big corporates that cost a lot of money. They're very slow. We have these cost-plus contracts. It's ridiculous. The government orders, whatever, a new fighter jet, and they get it in 20 years. And if it gets delayed by 10 years, well, then we'll just pay for 10 more years because the industry doesn't care. We get paid for 10 more years, and we get our margin added on top of that. So we get 10 more years of margin on top of that. So there's no... They're not incentivized to be fast, to produce something new off the shelf. It's a system that is wrong here. Yeah?
As a relatively new arrival in Germany, I was kind of shocked to find out that they still use the fax. So, but I mean, do you think there is some drive within the government to adopt more innovative and less burdensome regulations?
There is, but you know, the procurement agencies, at least that's my experience in Europe, they're lacking this, and I mentioned it before, this startup spirit, to like break something, learn from it. And if you only succeed in 90% of the cases, for startups, that's a big success. If you, as a procuring agency on the other side, if you procure a fighter jet and 1 of 10 fighter jet programs fails, that's not what you want. You want all of them to be successful. So it's a mindset there as well that we have to change, that it's possible that government money gets spent on something that in the end fails. Yeah? Because in the end, the overall goal will be much better. But we have to accept that some of this risk is necessary and we have to take it. And if things don't break and fail, the risk was not high enough. So we have to increase our risk awareness. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. But I will say, you know, jumping in and actually adopting proactively some of the legislative, for example, in the US, we have the White House AI Bill of Rights, which outlines ways in which governments and companies can adopt proactive measures to reduce risk and heighten and leverage the possibility for AI to be amazing. Those are the types of things that will unlock the technology, innovation, and allow it to have those use cases that are successful by early adoption of some of these best practices in the draft legislation.
And Florian, do you guys, how are you using AI? How does that fit into your drones analytics? And is that, are you collecting data in Ukraine that's going to be useful?
Yeah, we are collecting data, and so and we use that data to train our algorithms, for example, to detect Russian tanks or artillery deployments. I think AI is a big word. Most of the companies out there, and it's very hyped, and when I said to my investors, we're doing AI now, they were like, oh God, he's doing AI. So what we all do is basically we use AI. So there's a lot of algorithms out there developed by Google and the likes that put like 5,000, 10,000 people on this. There's nothing quantum could do. But what we all should do is we should adopt it and use it in our systems and in our architecture. I think that's more like what most 99% of the companies out there that say we use or do AI, what they do. They use the framework that is there.
All right, and Dominique, what do you tell your clients to get ready for in this fast-changing regulatory environment?
So I tell them to move fast with trust. And in order to do that, it's important sort of looking at the future to kind of look at pattern recognition from the past. What we noticed back with privacy and cyber is that early adoption only occurred for a few companies. The ones that did it are super successful. We have the most successful, $3 trillion market cap company in the world that adopted proactively privacy and cyber protective policies before they had to. Those companies that waited until after their tech stack was built to turn to these critical issues have seen a nosedive in their market cap. So what I'm telling companies now is we see the writing on the wall. When it comes to emerging tech like AI, 37 countries, 6 continents are saying the same things, and that's an opportunity there to be amazing.